folks. Of course, welcome to our Marketplace segment, sponsored by Nextdoor. This is where we, of course, focus on black-owned businesses every single week. And so, normally we have the stinger. We'll play that before our next segment. There's some news that came out. Will Smith and Jay-Z. It was announced they were investing $165 million into a company that deals with homes, a deal for renters. But what was interesting about that is that a lot of people on social media took to social media and they were highly critical of this decision and sort of shook my head and said, well, why? What's the deal here? I was talking to my man, John Hope Bryant, founder of Operation Hope, and he said, you know what, let's talk about this so we can really explain to folks what business is really about and how folks actually work. He joins us right now. So, John, give folks the details of this investment and what it means and what really, I won't say it ticked you off, but let's just say caused you to say, we need to actually have a real conversation in Black America about business.
Yeah. So first of all, I love you, Roland. Honored to be a supporter of the channel, and I mean that in a material way and not just aspirationally. I encourage everybody to do the same. Was lovely to see a black-owned company as one of your sponsors. More companies need to do that. Mainstream companies, certainly minority-owned companies. We need to buy our own block and invest in our own product. You know, we in my book Up From Nothing, you and I have talked a lot about the different mentalities. You have a winning mentality, a thriving mentality, a surviving mentality, and a spectator mentality. And this is like spectators like on another thing. Because you look at this investment and it's really two different conversations. You read most of the press and it's Will Smith and Jay-Z have invested as part of a group in a rent-to-own company. Okay, I actually think, my God, two brothers firmly from the hood, hell, a venture capital firm in one hand and a private equity firm on the other. That's fantastic. I mean, isn't that a beautiful thing that we want? Don't we want that? And they made their money legal and investing it likewise. That memo got missed. Folks on Twitter, at least where I saw, including a very notable person who I think is a historian par excellence, but maybe we need to talk about financial literacy a little bit, went in on Will and Jay-Z, and I can't figure out why. It's, first of all, I guess people were upset this was a white-owned company. Well, the company never said they were anything other. They never said they were here to save Black America. It's a rent-to-own company, right? And it appears trying to do affordable housing for low-income people. There was an immediate assumption that this was a scam, that poor people are going to be, and poor Black people are going to be abused. So you have this discussion in Black America that's very, actually, cynical. And then if you look at all the rest of the press, I encourage everybody to watching this, don't trust me, do your own search. The rest of the press is just pretty straight ahead. Couple of things, Roland. First of all, it wasn't just this is not Will and Jay putting in $165 million, as has been reported by our folks. They were part of an investment group.
Right.
Number two, there's no bad reputation. And by the way, I think this company probably took a page out of one of my books for a company that I own that does something similar to what he's talking about. And I'm saying, as somebody who actually should be a little aggrieved by it, bravo. I'm happy that he got the investment and he's doing this thing if it helps our people. Now, if they are found to be scamsters, if this company is found to be illegitimate, we should be all over them like a cheap suit. But at the moment, it's just the perception that this company was doing rent-to-own and that somehow Jay-Z and Will Smith were manipulating our people. I can't figure it out.
So here's the tweet that you're talking about. So this is the tweet right here that Nicole Hannah-Jones sent out on August 1st. The story from The Root: Jay-Z and Will Smith invest in a company to help low-income folks go from renters to homeowners. She tweets, credit counseling is not what will take low-income renters to homeowners. Wealth will. All this program does is charge struggling people additional fees for being poor which is what every other predatory lender does. Now, it got that particular tweet, 3,000 retweets and 16,100 likes. Now, this is what the story actually says. Landis Technologies raised $165 million to purchase 1,000 homes. It says the company purchases, according to Bloomberg, the company purchases a house and rents it to the client until they can qualify for a mortgage. The client can buy it back at a predetermined price up to 2 years after the initial acquisition. As part of its service, Landis provides coaching for clients on how to manage their finances to improve their credit and save the amount they need for a down payment. Landis sets rents equivalent to its carrying cost on the home. It also charges a fee on top of the value of the property at the time of its initial purchase. If a client isn't ready to buy the home after 2 years, Landis may offer them more time or sell the property. Now, John, first of all, according to the company, they hope to convert 80% of the people from renters into homeowners. So let's unpack this. Nicole says in her tweet, credit counseling is not what it will take low-income renters to homeowners. Wealth will. You absolutely disagree with that, because that's exactly what Operation Hope does. It helps people. First of all, go ahead and explain it.
Yeah, that is, again, she's brilliant. We all know her from the 1619 Project. She's a historic. I don't want to disagree with her because I actually highly respect her. She's on my reading list for next week. But on this point, she's just wrong. If it makes her feel any better, I actually told Mr. Bill Gates he was wrong 2 weeks ago at a meeting I saw him at. So I'm not discriminating. On this point, she's just respectfully incorrect. It is actually my story, Roland, as you well know, that I got a financial literacy course in Compton, California. Banker came in my classroom, and I raised my hand at the second session and said, "Excuse me, sir, what do you do for a living, and how'd you get rich legally?" He said, "I'm a banker and I finance entrepreneurs." I said, "Sir, I don't know what an entrepreneur is, but if you finance them and it's legal, I'm going to be one." And that's who I am today after he gave me this incredible financial literacy course in home economics class. I now own 700 homes, just under that, from Atlanta and to North Florida. I have a portfolio of businesses, founded Operation Hope. You know the rest of the story, employing a few hundred people. Not because I have the money, but because I had knowledge in my head about money. In fact, Roland, let's flip this. If people say, "Oh, we don't need all this counseling thing. We just need money." Okay, I'll take all the money in the world, you and me, redistribute it to everybody in the world equally. Take the money from the top 3%, redistribute it to everybody equally. What will happen in 3 years? The top 3% will own it all over again, if nothing else changes. I'll go one step further. You win the lottery. You stop and see a homeless guy on the side of the road. You want to help them because you won the lottery. All you do is give him $1 million because you're got goodness in your heart. That's all you do. He'll be broke in 6 months because nothing changes here. Nothing's going to change here. Wealth is a mindset. There's a difference between making money, getting paid, getting that paper, getting that dollar. Want to make that money, which we are unfortunately as black people overly obsessed with, and building wealth, which is what you do in your sleep. Financial literacy helps you understand that. It also, the last debate we had on your great program, this debate about home ownership, where folks say, "Oh, black people, we don't own the home, the bank does." What are you talking about, right? No, the bank owns the debt. And they only own a home if you default. You get the appreciation, the depreciation, which is good for your taxes. You get the write-off on every mortgage payment. We can go on and on and on. This is just a lack of understanding. Then there's good debt and bad debt, as we talked about before. So financial literacy is the one thing, Roland, we were denied. As you well know, you're a historian yourself. Freedmen's Bank, March 3rd, 1865, after the Civil War, we were given 40 acres, which was a pilot program, Field Action 15. Then we worked that so hard, we were given a mule, February 1865. The next month, Lincoln creates a bank called the Freedmen's Bank to domicile our savings, teach us about money. So Abraham Lincoln, on the occasion of our being freed from enslavement, thought the most important thing he could do was to teach us about the free enterprise system and capitalism and ownership. And Lincoln was killed the next month. Roland, Frederick Douglass thought this was so important. In order to save the bank, he put $10,000 of his own money in the bank in 1865 to try to save it and try to run the bank. Unfortunately, it was gamed and it closed in 1874. It's not like we got the memo on money and free enterprise and screwed it up. We never got the memo. So it's what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us. It's what we think we know. It's not like somebody gave us a memo on free enterprise and we messed it up. We keep talking about Tulsa, Oklahoma, as if it is really Wall Street. No, it was. It didn't produce capital. It didn't issue debt. They didn't provide venture capital like Will Smith and Jay-Z are doing right now. There was no banking infrastructure. There was no systemic uplift of tens of thousands of jobs. It was a wonderful example of a normal community where you have homeowners and small business owners and entrepreneurs. It was just normal, but we want to call it Black Wall Street. This is how messed up our situation is. That should have been the case in every community in America.
So John, when she says credit counseling is not what it would take low income renters to homeowners, the reality is this, John, and y'all have done it. If you right now have, and let's just again walk people through. If you right now have a credit score of 500, and you're going to have a much higher interest rate if you try to get you a mortgage. But if you work through credit counseling, what Operation Hope does, and move that to 700, that changes the interest rate on the mortgage. So actually, the credit counseling does help you, because if you can go ahead.
Yeah, and there's nothing that changes your life more than God or love than moving your credit score 120 points, all right? I mean, nothing. My mother's credit score is 854. My mother's not black, she's green. My mother worked an hourly job. So not only was that tweet by her incorrect about my life, which I just mentioned, is also incorrect about my mother's life, who worked an hourly job and bought and sold 7 homes. 7. Because her credit score is to a point where she cannot be. If you have a credit score of 800, even 750, no one's going to tell you no for anything. By the way, all of the problems in our neighborhoods, as you know, Roland, are in 500 credit score neighborhoods, by the way, where you see a check casher next to a payday loan lender, next to a renter-owned store, next to a title lender, next to a liquor store and a pawn shop. Andrew Young said that to live in a system of free enterprise and not to understand the rules of free enterprise must be the definition of slavery. So yes, credit score, half of black folks have a credit score below 620. Fact, half of us. So while we think the bank may be discriminating against us on race, and maybe they are, the likelihood they don't even need to go that far. Your credit score does not allow you to buy a home at a prime rate at 600. You can get a Homeboy Shopping Network mortgage, as you're saying, a 21%, a 15% mortgage, which will on a $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 house will make your wallets explode. But if you can get your credit score rolling up to 680 through Operation Hope coaching, which raises credit scores 54 points in 6 months, 120 points in 24 months. You get your credit score up to 680, your mortgage goes down to, I don't know, probably 7% in the current environment. You get your credit score up to 710, the mortgage is 3%. That's like them giving you money.
So again, for the person listening, so if you increase your credit score, to go from 7% to 3% means, again, how much you're paying on that mortgage, you're paying less. I want to bring this, and I do want to get your take on this here, because this is what the story says, that the company will purchase a house, rent to a client. So basically, you as a client, you're moving into a home that you will have, work with you 2 years to buy. Now, it says Landis is going to charge a fee on top of the value of the property at the time of its initial purchase. So we don't know what that fee is. But what this is, we don't. But what this is saying is, what they're basically saying is, we're going to acquire the home. We're going to give you 2 years and work with you to get your finances in order, credit score improved, for you to be able to buy the home. I don't know of many other programs that will allow you to, a sense, if you're low income, to move into a home. We're going to help you try to buy it, and then you have a shot to buy it, after 2 years, and then the 2 years passes, they might give you more time. I'm trying to understand again how this is attacking the poor.
Well, no, it's not. It's attacking clicks on the internet. It's what it is. I mean, it just created this firestorm of conversation. It reminds me of the two hobos. This is a Jesse Jackson story, Roland. The two hobos got kicked off the train. They're upset about it for non-payment. One hobo said, "Man, I'm so upset. I think I'm gonna buy this here train." The other hobo said, "Yeah, I'm upset too. I'm gonna sell it to you." Let that sink in for a minute. Both of them so broke they can't pay attention. They're talking past each other about about a situation that nobody is paying them any attention on. The train is gone. The train in our neighborhood of home ownership is leaving, and we're having ridiculous debates. Gentrification, which is a conversation that we should have at some point, is really just a movement of middle class values. Why aren't we buying the house with the tree in it in our neighborhood? Buy it, rehab it, rent it, and own it. Buy it, rehab it, rent it, or buy it, rehab it, and live in it, and watch that equity go up for ourselves. That's a whole nother conversation, but real estate values are doing nothing but going up, and that's been the case since the beginning of time. So put that issue aside for a moment. To your point, the answer is yes. It's a very unique program, and I'm talking about somebody, theoretically, Roland, I'm their competitor. I'm sorry, theoretically, they're my competitor. Theoretically, I could say that capital that should have gone to me, I'm the largest in the country as a minority, went to this company through two notable investors. I'm not saying that, Roland. I'm saying this. Bravo. We need as many folks out here trying to help folks come up as possible, as long as it's honorable, ethical, it's done in complete plain sight. This seems to be very transparent. I actually don't know many programs that does this. I would have done it differently. I would have, been more elegant about how we integrate the services and been more transparent. Is a credit counseling free? Mine is, and all that kind of stuff. But I do they do say, Roland, it's all up front. Here's what the price of the house is going to be. Here's what the fee is that we're going to charge you up front. Here's what the predetermined purchase price is going to be 2 years after. And if you need more time, we'll give you more time. Now, if you don't like the deal, you walk away. You find a better deal, you go do the deal. But from what this is saying, and they say that the rent will be based on their carrying costs, there's an assumption here that's going to be also at market. In other words, the rents will be at market rate. But if it's not at market rate and you're getting a bad deal, leave.
Sounds pretty basic to me. John Hope Bryant, founder of Operation Hope. Always a pleasure. Thanks a bunch.
Radical movement of common sense.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Okay.
One of the most stressful days of my life was when this one got out. I chased after her as best I could, kind of fell over and broke my wheelchair. I was able to get back home and make a post. Within about 5 or so minutes, I had 3 or 4 different people coming to the rescue. One woman stopped traffic, just drove her right back to the house for me. It was a very emotional day.
Over a period of 10 years, my neighborhood went from being almost 98% black to being 98% white. So all of a sudden, oh God, I'm the suspicious looking black man. I posted on Nextdoor that I no longer felt comfortable walking in this neighborhood. The response I got was hundreds and hundreds of neighbors offering to walk with me. This experience moved me and changed the way I saw humanity.
At Nextdoor, we come to work every day to help cultivate a kinder world. We want to make sure that everyone has a neighborhood to rely on.
When we started this company, we felt that technology had an important role to play in bringing communities and neighbors together. We knew that having the support of your neighbors was critical.
When I found out I was becoming a father, I panicked. What am I going to feed this kid? I posted, hey, any other gardeners who might have extra soil, seeds, equipment, and they came up from everywhere.
As human beings, we want a sense of safety and anything that gives us that sense of connection.
You drive through a neighborhood and you see houses and bricks, but really what you have is people, business owners and entrepreneurs.
We know that the locals are what keep our restaurant going. When somebody says that they enjoy our restaurant, it brings us business.
It's been really cool being able to cheer on your neighbors as they open up the next coffee shop.
When Hurricane Harvey first hit Houston, I realized that Nextdoor was much more than just a day-to-day utility. It was a lifeline to the community.
The neighbors have been using that Nextdoor app to coordinate evacuations.
When the pandemic started, people did have the urge to help, but often they didn't know who to help or how. Our Nextdoor group took off explosively. Just after a year, we had over 1,000 members.
Nextdoor evokes a sense of pride in your neighborhood, and we know that people globally are craving for that.
We posted our music video on the Nextdoor app. A lot of people in the area liked it.
And people are beautiful. Let's go see the beautiful. Keep them rhythm for the vibes we got. Stay on the drums.
I think the video meant a lot to our neighbors because it portrays the Cascade area in a positive lighting.
At the end of the day, this is a business model about people and neighborhoods and communities. Wouldn't it be beautiful to connect Wall Street to Main Street and to do well and do good at the same time?
It's going to be the legacy of 2020 that Nextdoor put neighbors together for a cause and then forever.
Oh, thank you very much.
It often starts online, but we know that it continues into the real world, and that is the superpower of Nextdoor.
Five Miami Beach police officers face first-degree battery charges for allegedly using excessive force during the arrest of two black men, Delonta Crudup and Khaled Vaughn. It took place at a South Beach hotel. Check this out. Now, this is surveillance video. It shows an officer chase Crudup into the lobby of the Royal Palm Hotel. The officer ordered Crudup onto the ground at gunpoint, and then Crudup complies. Moments later, more than a dozen more officers flood into the lobby surrounding Crudup. The cops then slammed Crudup's head on the ground and began to kick him violently. Y'all, that's a lot of cops for one person. All of this happened because officers claim Crudup struck a bicycle patrol officer while driving a scooter recklessly. Now, during Monday's news conference, Miami-Dade State Attorney Catherine Fernandez Rondo walked through what happened when officers caught Vaughn using a cell phone to record Crudup's arrest.
4 steps back with his camera. Now you see Officer Sabater running in and tackling him there. Watch what happens next. I'm sorry, but it's all we have. It's what it is. So if you could play that, George, please. Now what you see, there's a series of punches in the back rib cage area or kidney area. It's on the back. You see that there? See that there? There are different videos of the same thing, so that's why it seems repetitive. Do you see it right there? Can you roll that back, George, please? See the back there? That's Officer. It's a different angle using body-worn cameras at this point. Then about 5 seconds later, I don't know if you can catch that there. See that right there? So Sergeant Perez had, who kicked him, had then, we'll see him come back around in just a second.
Crudup was facing several charges, including aggravated battery of a law enforcement officer. Vaughn was charged with resisting an arrest, with violence, and impeding a police investigation. After reviewing the video footage, Police Chief Richard Clements requested all charges against both men be dropped. State Attorney Roland agreed and dropped the charges. Sergeant Jose Perez, officers Kevin Perez, not related, Robert Sebester, David Rivas, and Steven Serrano turned themselves in on Monday. This Mustafa right here shows you, again, when you have thug cops, how they will attack folks, beat folks, and they thought, we're gonna get away with this, but it was that surveillance video and body camera footage that actually did them in. And every single, now granted, it's misdemeanor charges, every single one of these cops should be fired, including, and in fact, the state's attorney general, the state's attorney complained that only one officer acted to pull one of the cops away, but the rest of them just stood around and watched them do what they do. All of them should lose their jobs.
I agree. You know, being a police officer is a privilege, and it means that you carry yourself in that way. We see far too many instances where folks are handcuffed. They got their hands behind their back on the ground, and then people want to, you know, continue to beat on folks and to put their lives actually in danger. So this has to change. But also, you see police officers actually turn their back so they don't have to sometimes see what's going on. It's almost like some of these congressmen on Capitol Hill who say, well, I haven't seen the video yet, so I don't really know what went on. You know what went on. 21 police officers moved into that space. The gentleman was already, you know, had his hands behind his back, and they still continued to pile on. Then they started whipping on him. And then they moved to the other brother who was recording it because they're like, wait a minute, we can't have this individual actually capturing what was going on. Of course, they didn't know that there were the other cameras that were also capturing these injustices that continue to happen. And that's why if you don't want to be a police officer, then don't be a police officer, you know? But you can't have this job and then continue to do things that you arrest other people for. And that's why you deserve to lose your job. And the folks who are standing around watching and not stopping these individuals from allowing this to further escalate, they also need to be, you know, they've got to deal with the consequences of that as well.
Amisha, the state's attorney said when the police chief saw the video, all he did was just put his head down on his desk. He was shocked and stunned by what he saw.
It is shocking, but not necessarily surprising. It was hard to watch because as you were playing that, the guy's head was literally bouncing up and down off of the floor. You have individuals who, one, I don't know why all of those cops were called to the scene in the first place. That was a lot of people. And to the point that Mustafa made a moment ago, you have so many officers that were basically just standing around. At no point is anyone trying to stop the aggression or trying to de-escalate. Isn't that the whole point? That's what we hear in all of these cases, de-escalation. That's what you're supposed to do when you get on the scene. They came to the scene and escalated. There was not any amount of violence that was occurring before they got there. And I think that it's interesting because we always see in every case that these officers up charges when they're trying to eradicate their own culpability and their behavior. They up the charges for those who they were trying to take in. What can we expect? We've seen the body cam footage. We saw the footage that was taken from the lobby area in and of itself. This was a strike force used against two people. And I think that it was extremely egregious, but it's also, when does this stop? You quoted the chief being very disappointed in what he saw or thinking of it as unbelievable. No, sir. These are people you trained. These are people who come to work for you every single day. These are people who I'm sure this wasn't their first incident of random violence. Police officers who respond like this are police officers who, just like anyone who assaults people in real life outside of the police uniform, these are people who have a consistent time of doing so. So they need to, it's not training. It's not a training issue. We already know that. It's not a training issue because this doesn't happen to white people. It is one of police abuse against those who are black and brown. And we consistently see black men in particular getting their heads beat in by these officers. And the question is, when can we expect police reforms to actually happen? When? Yesterday would be too far. We need these things to happen now because thank God those men came out of this situation alive, but far too many of our brothers do not.
Well, I'll tell you what, Teresa, we have seen Miami Beach have lots of problems in the past with thug cops.
We have, and it won't stop. We will continue to see, unfortunately, this injustice against civilians, against taxpayers, and against Black men and women until the justice system decides to do their part. And that is not only prosecuting many of the officers that we see in the videos continuously, but also reaching into their life savings, which is their pensions. So I've been a big proponent of pension snatching for those officers who choose not to understand the law when it comes to police civility and doing their jobs, because it's not like, again, when police are may be reprimanded at one department, they just transfer to another, and that violence continues and someone else is hurt, and ultimately it could lead in another lost life. So why, continuously, just move the individual from, department to department when we really need solutions from the Justice Department to do something holistically.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Our friends with Seek.com, they are back.
Yo, this is Ziggy Marley. Catch my live performance on Seek.
You're Bon Jovi, and you're watching us on Seek. What's going on? This Quavo Huncho. Right now, you in the Huncho's world. Please let the music play.
It's a Black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They, of course, have their virtual reality content that you can actually see via their app, Seek.com, but they also have the products that they actually sell. So so one of the products you can see right here, folks, is their virtual headset that you see right here, which allows for you to actually see the content. Just simply place your phone right in here, and then you can actually see a particular video. But remember, they also have the great headsets, and so this is one, and actually they've added a new color. So you saw these before. We showed you these before. They're black and white. Excuse me, they're black and gold headsets, 360-degree surround sound. And so they sent me their headsets, and I said, okay, cool. Then I opened this one, and y'all know I was like, okay, I like this one here. All gold. Now, as an alpha, I love this here. And so this is their all gold headset. And so it is absolutely amazing sound. The bass is incredible. Just go to Seek.com, but use this promo code. It's RMVIP21. Now we should have put it in the lower third, please. The promo code is RMVIP21. Go to Seek.com. And so when you purchase either the headset or the VR headset, we also get a cut of the proceeds, and we certainly appreciate Seek being returning as one of our partners here at Roland Martin Unfiltered.
9 months ago today, NBC News declared Joseph Biden the winner of the 2020 election and the 46th president of the United States. The 2.5 months between that day and Inauguration Day were a transition period unlike any in American history. Perhaps the only time a sitting U.S. president actively tried to overturn an election result. Even 9 months later, we're still learning just how extensive that effort was. As we mentioned at the top of the hour, ABC News reported this week that the now former Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Clark drafted a letter to Georgia officials telling them that the Justice Department was investigating, quote, voting irregularities and urging them to call a special session to choose their own electors. Neither NBC nor MSNBC has verified those materials, but we can tell you that the acting Attorney General, Jeffrey Rosen, rejected the letter. It was never sent. On Wednesday night, Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy, a member of the House Oversight Committee, told me that Clark had drafted similar letters to officials in 6 states that all went for Biden. So it looks like he had more than just Georgia on his mind. And these revelations come after last weekend's reporting by the New York Times' Katie Benner that Trump himself pressed the Justice Department to declare the election results corrupt. For more on this, I'm joined by Joyce Vance, former U.S. attorney and now an MSNBC legal analyst and a professor at the University of Alabama Law School. Also with me, Roland Martin, host of Roland Martin Unfiltered, who is so devoted to his craft that he's doing it even while he's at a benefit golf tournament this morning. Great to see both of you. Joyce Vance, you have written an article along with a few others in the Washington Post, a roadmap to prosecuting Donald Trump, in which you lay out some crimes: conspiracy, obstruction of an official proceeding, RICO violation of the Hatch Act and inciting insurrection and or seditious conspiracy. Here's my question to you. I had a whole bunch of people tell me they didn't even want a January 6th commission because it would be like impeachment all over again. They've already seen this. It's been done. Donald Trump's been impeached twice. But we're actually working on new evidence. We've got new stuff that makes what you thought happened on January 6th even worse than it was. And you and others like you think there should be a criminal prosecution for this.
So this is why, folks are so often dismayed by the fact that prosecutions take a long time to come together. Indictments can be delayed for what seems to the public like an unconscionable amount of time. But the reality is, from inside of the game, if you're a prosecutor and an investigator, these facts come to light slowly. And often you can miss the worst conduct if you're too eager to jump too soon. We're seeing that happen in real time now. And the argument that we make is that DOJ needs to be, if it is not already, seriously investigating a number of crimes that range from a conspiracy to defraud the government, to obstruction of official proceedings, to sedition and incitement of insurrection charges, but also voter fraud claims based on this effort by Trump and his allies to have states tabulate false votes, and even a criminal Hatch provision. That's not to say that all of these charges should be indicted, but DOJ must not move past the effort to fully investigate these items in a criminal sense, even while Congress continues to keep the momentum up with the January 6th Commission. Facts can be elusive things, and people who are involved in criminal activity want to keep them from coming to light. So it can be a frustrating process, but frankly, I think we're now at the point where the truth can come to light, where the former president no longer has the power of the pardon and other accoutrements of the office of the presidency at his disposal, and we will finally see accountability here.
Roland, do you think people get, and you're from Texas, so this is playing out in real time there. Do you think people get the connection between the suppression of voter rights, these restrictive voting rights bills, and the actual stuff that was going on, the actual efforts that the last administration was involved in, or the last president was involved in, to potentially overturn the will of the people in places like Georgia and Pennsylvania and Arizona and Michigan and Wisconsin? Do you think that connection is obvious?
No, I don't think the connection is obvious, because part of the problem has been the unwillingness of Democrats to forcefully explain this to the public. That is the fundamental problem here, Alshie. The reality is this here. Donald Trump is thug in chief. That's who he was. And so when you see the changing of all of these laws, it is to accommodate what he was trying to accomplish. This man is going to run in 2024. We've got to confront this. What they were engaged in was absolute illegal activity. And at some point, we have got to be willing to say this cannot happen again. And we must target every single person. They will try it again. And the Republicans in the Senate and the House, they don't care. They care about power. They care about control. And we must confront this. We cannot allow these thugs to be in power again.
Joyce, all through the president's misdeeds, we were talking about Watergate. We had experts from Watergate. We had people who had been there in Watergate telling us about the similarities. But Watergate almost seems small by comparison to what we are learning now about letters, pressure on the Attorney General, the acting Attorney General, letters potentially from the Attorney General to the state of Georgia to say, don't listen to the will of the people. There was something wrong with your election. I mean, that becomes a little harder than that weird Christmas time phone call from Donald Trump to Brad Raffensperger. One of the things I'm most worried about is we don't actually have guardrails to prevent against this happening. It depended on good people of goodwill to say, I'm not doing this.
It is frightening. We should all be frightened. I think it's easy to discount events when you're living through them, but Roland is dead on the money. We need to be very focused on what's happening now. I don't say that in an alarmist fashion, just pragmatically as an American, because what Trump and his cronies tried to do after this election with getting state legislatures to throw the election to Trump, that has now become the law in a number of states. For instance, Georgia, yes, where there's a bill that permits the legislature to intervene. So, Allie, I think the good comparison isn't Watergate. It's the Civil War. You made that point at the top of the show, where there was an effort to rend the Union asunder. And the difference is that at the end of the Civil War, there were people who came forward and surrendered, who acknowledged that they had been wrong. Trump has never done that. Trump is dedicated to moving forward. He will do it again. He will subvert the law. That's why it's so imperative that DOJ take this seriously. And although DOJ doesn't like to engage in criminal prosecutions, this is the rare exceptional case where it must happen or we are at grave risk.
Hey, Allie, I want to expand just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Republicans in Pennsylvania literally were trying to change how members of the Supreme Court in the state were elected. They wanted to go to districts because they were angry with their decision. In North Carolina, after they lost control of the state Supreme Court, they tried to give more of the power to the court underneath the state Supreme Court. So what we have to understand here is that Republicans today, to your point, they have no morals. They have no values. They have no principles. This is not about America or democracy. They are choosing power, even over party. And what we have to realize, they are doing it in our face, which tells you they will continue to do it in 2022 and in 2023 and in 2024. And God forbid that thug somehow gets the nomination and comes close to being back in the Oval Office. If you think the crap that he did for 4 years, if you think that was crazy, just watch what this man would try to do with the second term. America is in danger, and this is real.
What do you make of this notion that you somehow are a scary candidate, meaning that you would come into Congress and be causing dissension within the Black Caucus? I saw some of the comments over the weekend. Again, the fierce campaigning that is happening on both sides.
Well, you know, that's why some of them, they just want to try to caricature me. That's nothing new. We know that Black women have endured this since the inception of this country. It really is a shame to see members of the Black Caucus play into those types of stereotypes. I wonder, did they think that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was scary when he stood up against this nation and talked about the three evils: militarism, poverty, racism? I wonder, did they think that Fannie Lou Hamer, sharecropper from Mississippi, was scary when she united with her poor white sisters and brothers and family and friends in Mississippi and started a freedom party and actually challenged President Lyndon Baines Johnson and the Democratic Party in the 1960s and called them out for not doing a good job when it came to listening to the cries of the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class? So we find ourselves in that same scenario right now. And so people who want to uphold the status quo, they come in all phenotypes, and there's always people who want to uphold the status quo in every single generation. And we see that right now, right here. I wonder, did they think Rosa Parks was scary when she challenged? And on, Roland. I can give countless examples of the very people that we come together to recognize and uplift right now in the 21st century. They were vilified and maligned in their time when they too were fighting against the status quo.
When we look at this particular race, folks obviously will be going to the polls. What do you see as the starkest contrast between you and your primary opponent, Shontel Brown? And first of all, let's be clear, it's not just the two of you in the race.
That's right.
Is it like 13, 15, 20, 50 people running?
You got it about right. There's 16 people in total. We count the 3 Republicans who will be in their own primary, but yes, there are 13 Democrats running for the seat. Thank you for that moment of levity. You know, for me, I'm not just saying if something passes, I'll support it. I'm out there fighting for these things to pass. And whether that is Medicare for all, 1 million Ohioans lost their employer-sponsored health care since this pandemic. And if you add that with the crisis of people who are underinsured or underinsured or don't have health insurance at all, that comports with what movement, the progressive movement, and what I call the freedom fighter movement is pushing for. I'm not just saying that if $15 an hour passes, I'll vote for it. I'm out there in the streets fighting for it, have been doing that for over 6 years. I do understand from my lived experience how people who are poor, working poor, and barely middle class feel and the needs that they have. Roland, Cleveland, Ohio is the poorest city in the nation of its size. When you go and roll into Akron, 23% of the people who live in Akron are poor. We don't have time to play games. We need leaders who are going to stand up and have the courage to ask for more. And that is not in contradiction with working with somebody. Of course, if the administration does good things, if the Congress is working on good things, I'm going to be right there to be partner with. But being a partner does not mean being a puppet, and working with does not mean acquiescing to. And if we look at all the greatest socio-economic justice changes that have ever happened in the United States of America, it happened not because politicians got a clue. It happened because ordinary people put a little extra on their ordinary, and they pushed the body politic towards justice, the A. Philip Randolphs of the world, the Ella Bakers of the world. So these very people are some of the same people that were against even President Obama being president of the United States of America. These are the same forces. And Roland, let me make one other point. My major competitor is taking money from Trump Republicans. The owner of the Patriots has donated to her campaign directly, and then indirectly donated to super PACs that are coming in here with that evil dark money to upset, disrupt, and pick their candidate instead of allowing the residents, the voters of this district to pick who they want to have. It is wrong, and if we let them win here, they're coming to a neighborhood near you.
One of the things that we look at these races, turnout is always an issue. And so I was looking at these tweets by Wyatt Ruthven, who is with the South Carolina, first of all, who is, very much covers politics, follows politics. And this is what he tweeted out. Final Ohio 11 early voting numbers out of Cuyahoga. 27,199 ballots requested, 20,681 were returned. In Summit County, 2,431 ballots requested, 2,236 ballots returned. He said, based upon these numbers, I'm predicting a total turnout of 40,205. That has got to be unsettling. I mean, look, most congressional districts around 700,000 people. They have 16 people running, and turnout, some say could be anywhere between 40 and 50,000. How are you and your campaign seeing turnout in this race?
That's pretty much our prediction too, and it definitely makes me sad that people have opted out. I mean, here it is, a special election in the heart of summer. Most people are not accustomed to voting in July. Early voting started on July the 7th. And the election day, as you're laying out, is tomorrow. So it's really hard for people, and especially not just having an election in the summer, but also with the pandemic raging and all of these things. So there are some compounding factors. That being said, even if we solve for those, we know that voters don't turn out in the largest numbers necessary during a special election. I want to work to continue, as I always have, to increase voter turnout. It is vitally important, Roland, that we have more people participate in the process than less. Our democracy is more robust. What people's voices out there voting is more robust. So it is sad. All of us should be sad, no matter which candidate you're supporting, that so many people are deciding not to participate in this election. And should I be the winner, I'm going to do everything in my power to leverage my national experience married with my local experience to really motivate and galvanize people to come out to vote. But we have got to give people something to vote for. So as we go into 2022, the Democratic Party would do well to heed the words of Reverend Dr. William Barber and other leaders in the Poor People Campaign, other activists across this country who are crying out saying that the people of this nation deserve more. We have the resources to give them more. Let's do that so that Democrats can show clearly by their deeds that they are different than the Republican Party and that they will deliver for the people who suffer the most in this country. Roland, I am running because of love of the community, love of the poor, love of the downtrodden and the marginalized. And I want to continue my work in the halls of Congress.
Last question for you. There have been a lot of things thrown at you. A lot of people, I've seen the tweets, people who have been very upset with previous comments that you have made with regards to President Joe Biden, with regards to VP Kamala Harris, with regards to Congressman Jim Clyburn. Do you regret previous statements? Do you think you were too over the top, too aggressive, or you simply stand by everything you said before?
What I regret is that some people are more focused on colorful words than focused on the suffering of people. As I just laid out, Cleveland is the poorest city of its size in the United States of America. My sisters and brothers and family and friends in Akron, about 23%. What I regret is that folks went on vacation without expanding the moratorium on evictions. What I regret is a legal system that sees Black men as more criminal than anybody else, and by extension, other people of color, and then people who are poor. What I regret is that we don't seem to get that the main things are the main things, and that's what we should be focusing in on, and not some colorful words, and not a Black woman's agency in the United States of America. And so again, I am running this race to partner with anybody who is going to sit down or walk or run, whatever we need to do, on a justice journey to lift the people who are suffering the most in this country. And what I will say is that I am old enough to remember that on the debate stage during the primary, that now Vice President Harris called out the current president for his record on busing in schools. And I remember her saying I was that little girl, and she laid out his record. Now they are side by side. So the moral of the story is, if now Vice President Harris and the president now can work side by side, even though they had some harsh words, or she had some harsh words laying it down during the presidential debate, and nobody's upset about that anymore, then the people who got the dandruff up can rest assured that Sister Turner can work with, and looking forward to working with that administration on what is just, what is right, and what is good. I'm the dance partner for justice, but I am going to always put my district first. They are my first, second, third, and fourth concern. And lastly on that, I think people need to take another civics lessons, because the Congress is not there. The President of the United States of America is not the boss of the Congress. They are co-equal branches of government. And it is the job of any member of Congress, whether they're in the U.S. Senate or in the U.S. House, to advocate for their constituents and also to push the administration to do more, whether they are Republican or Democrat. And that is certainly what I plan to do if I'm elected.
All right then, Nina Turner, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Roland.
Folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the Black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in Black-owned businesses, the Black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.
Where a South Carolina police officer is out of a job after violently stomping on a Black man's head during an arrest. And this is such an unfortunate situation, folks. But Orangeburg's Department of Public Safety officer Lance Dukes faces first-degree assault and battery charges for the July 26th attack on Clarence Gailliard. Now, in this body cam video released by Gailliard's attorney, Dukes orders the 58-year-old to the ground. Moments later, he stomps on his head. Now, Gailliard suffered a bruise to his forehead and was taken to the hospital by paramedics. Orangeburg public safety officials say that Dukes was responding to a 911 call about a man carrying a gun. He was fired from the department 2 days after the incident and faces a maximum of 10 years in prison. Now, in this body cam video, we see it from the vantage point of another officer who actually did the right thing. Check this out.
Pharmacy, give me a description of subject.
I don't know you. I walked over there.
There a gun back there? No.
Ain't no gun.
By that truck.
Ain't no gun.
You're not listening, dude.
You got a gun on you, man? No, I ain't got no gun. I ain't no gun.
Sir,
What are you doing here? Where are you?
I was over there in my cousin's house over there asleep. He said he walk over here with him. For what? I do not know. I do not know. I don't know what the hell going on out here.
Sir. So what's your name? Where are you coming from?
I was over there asleep.
So what are you doing over here?
My cousin asked me to come walk over here with him. For what reason?
Who's your cousin? The one in the burgundy?
Yeah.
Okay.
For what reason? I don't know what the hell going on over there, man.
Do you have a gun or anything on you?
No.
Sir, come on. You can get up off the floor. Okay? And now I'm going to turn around and pat you down, okay? Alright. What's going on? Do you know what's going on?
Yup, they slammed my head down on the cement.
Does he need EMS? He need EMS?
Go back in the house. I got a head trauma. Go back in the house. Yep. Yo, bust my head down.
Can I get EMS?
Yeah, I've been in an accident. Yep. Yo, bust my head down. You threw me down.
I sure did.
Yeah. No, it ain't. You ain't had to throw me down like that. I'm disability.
Okay.
I got the head problem. Yup. You throw me down. Yup. You throw me down.
Individual head has been busted. He has
Yup. You bust my head.
His head is bleeding a little bit on his forehead.
You bust my head down on the cement.
He was in front of the car when I came out. He was walking like this. And I thought it was a gun at first. I said, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun. Had him a gun point. He's over here doing something like this.
You slammed my head. You slammed my head.
What he was doing is putting this up behind the tire. So he comes over right here. He got his hands in his pockets. I'm telling him, let me see your hands, let me see your hands, let me see your hands.
Why you bust my head then?
He wasn't listening.
No, it ain't.
He got
then I put it
like
down.
this right here.
Then you grab me, and then you bust my head down on the cement. You bust my forehead.
Kicked him on his
Damn
neck.
right, because you bust me down on the cement.
He kicked him on his
Bust my
neck.
head down.
Yeah, right here. I'm standing right here because I got out the car.
Bust my head.
Where's the complainant?
Bust my head down.
We're trying to get the name of the complainant, so I dispatch to give me the name.
Brother Michael, I want to go back to my panel right now. Brother Michael, it's interesting and ironic that you have these two incidents, one black woman officer who is the perpetrator, and then you have this other black woman officer who is trying to make things right. You know, when we look at a situation like this, and you can see that the officer is trying to explain or trying to justify why he brutalized this brother. But at some point, I'm just starting to feel like maybe it is just the fact that that's just how police are. And that when we have these conversations about police interaction with the public, we should just say, that's what police do. Not, oh, they're supposed to do this and they're supposed to do that. No, that's what they do. That's what they do. Let's keep it in the present moment. Let's keep it real. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not talk about the fluffy protect and serve. No, police will bust your head, kick your ass if you go against them. That's where the conversation, I think, needs to start at this point.
Well, we see that some police officers are doing that, whereas others are not, and try to de-escalate a situation. I'm glad that sister was there to be reasonable. And I'm not sure how old she is. I'd like to know how old she is as well, because you have some older white police officers, especially. Now, some of them can be younger, but especially you have older white police officers who are hardliners, who have this mentality of do what you're told, period. Okay? And, you know, there are approximately 800,000 police officers across the country, approximately 18,500 police departments. Some do a much better job than others. So I'm glad that sister was there, and I'm glad that officer was fired. It was uncalled for him to kick him in the head, kick that brother in the head like he did. That was totally uncalled for. Going back to, very quickly if I could, going back to the first the first police topic that we talked about when you interviewed Attorney Al Holfeld. In that case in Chicago, that's a very interesting case because tomorrow will be the 2-year anniversary of that incident. It took place August 7th, 2019. I'm trying to find out, were any of these officers fired? Because they entered the home without a search warrant. They then lied to cover up the fact that they got the wrong house. They lied and said they saw a suspect go into the house. Their body cam footage proved that a suspect did not go into the house, which means they lied. And I'm wondering, okay, so what did you put in the police report? Did you lie in the police report also? Now, this took place 2 years ago. Has anybody been fired? Those are the officers who lied in the police report should be fired and prosecuted. Okay, so yeah, brother, that's a crazy case right there.
No, and I'm glad, Brother Michael, that you brought that piece up, because I think that you know, a lot of times when you're talking about the follow through of these cases, we often don't hear about it. We hear about the infraction or the violation, but we don't hear about the follow through unless they're high profile cases. And I'm hoping that in this case with Mr. Gaillard down in Orangeburg, South Carolina, the follow through is that the officer is removed. Now, he probably won't be, because this is America, and those type of things don't happen because one in violation. A joker got to get 10 violations on his jacket.
Was that where the brother was kicked in the head who was on the ground?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's what you just talked about. I think, wasn't that officer fired? Didn't they say that the officer was fired?
I mean, he was fired, but I'm just saying, you're right. It's just
convicted.
Yes, convicted.
Prosecuted. He needs to be prosecuted for assault. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm hoping that leads to some level of conviction, something, because we just don't see it. And we just don't see it. And it's not enough just to get fired. Hell, it's not even enough just to say, we want money from you. I mean, we need the whole package. We can't get an a la carte type of justice. We need the whole package at this point.
Back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just 1 month.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
If you haven't heard, Dr. Dre is under fire. Apparently, his 38-year-old daughter, who is the daughter of his ex-wife, Lisa Johnson, his eldest daughter, LaTanya Young, says she's homeless and has been living out of a rental car that is costing her $2,300 a week. Now, how has she been handling and dealing with herself? Well, she's been, doing DoorDash and Uber Eats. She's been doing other side jobs like working in a warehouse for about $15 an hour. But she says that the billionaire producer has not been there for her for the past 18 months. Now, she did admit to the fact that she had received in the past, money to pay for her rent and allowance, but that all ended in the beginning of 2020. Now, part of the reason that she believes that Dr. Dre, her dad, has stopped giving her money is simply because she talks to the media and that she talks about things that her dad doesn't want her to talk about. As a result, she feels like she's being punished and that she can't communicate with her father, and that the only way to communicate with him is to go through his people. Now, I wanted to bring this issue up, and I want to get the insight of my panelists tonight, because we're asking the question, when do you stop taking care of your child? When does this growth, this stage of growth begins? And I thought this is interesting because there's still a lot of unanswered questions, Dr. Carter, when it comes to LaTanya Young and some of the trials that she has been suffering from. She is a mother of 4. The 4 children do not live with her in the car. They do live with family and friends. I don't know what the relationship has been between her mother and her, and why her mother, Lisa Johnson, has allowed her to live in a car. But see, this is a 38-year-old woman. So I'm trying to understand, you know, is this a situation of arrested development? Is this a situation where, you know, a child is not ready to move on, or, you know, take it to the next level? What are we seeing right here in dealing with this situation, and what can we glean from it?
Well, you know, I will say this: I'm a child of a family here, so this is something that I think has been a conversation in my family about when you're too enmeshed with your children and when is enough. I knew at a young age that there was going to be a time when my mother would say no, but I also knew that if I fell on hard times, that I could go home. I still know that, right? I know that I can do that with my parents. But that said, you know, it's hard, you know, being an outsider looking in. We don't know, as you said, all the ins and outs of their relationship. Maybe it's a strained relationship, at least from some of the things she said. It appears to be that way. But I also think, you know, many of us want to sort of armchair psychologize this family and tell these people what they should be like. And most of us are only saying this because we know that Dr. Dre is a billionaire, and we say, well, he has it, he can do it, he can take care of her. Yes, he can. He can take care of all of us and then some, right? But what I should do as a parent is something separate. I mean, as you know, we are talking about a 38-year-old woman. We don't know what her circumstances are. We don't know why this has changed, right? And so I feel uncomfortable saying what Dr. Dre or any other parent ought to be doing for their grown child. I know, at least for me, I think the expectation was, I'm going to put you in the best position I can to be able to care for yourself. And if it comes to a time when you cannot, because of something, right, an act of God, job loss, or some traumatic event, then yes, you can rely on family. But that's my family. I can't say what this looks like for other people. And I also know that my mother had very clear boundaries around what was acceptable and what was allowed. If I'm a substance abuser and other things, I am absolutely not allowed in her home. I'm not coming to her home. That was made very clear to me. So there are limits that I think parents can put on their children, regardless of age, particularly once they are adults, about what is acceptable behavior. I think that's true for any person, right? Boundaries are always good, and you don't have to explain to people why you put those boundaries there, just that you have. So I'm not going to say whether he should be doing something for his daughter or not. I think it's an unfortunate circumstance, and I have a lot of empathy for her current circumstances, because no one should be housing insecure. No one, whether your parents are billionaires or not.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Dr. Carter. I want to bring Brother Michael. What's your take on this? Because something that Dr. Carter said that I think that is a big message that is often in the Black community, at least in my household as well. I could be wrong, Brother Michael, on your end. But I remember my dad, he probably said, well, I didn't say it quite like that. Yes, you did, Dad. You told me when I was 18 years old, I better hit the road, man. You got to get up out of here. Now, that has been a part of our culture for a very long time, that you get to quote unquote adult age, and next thing you know, your parents are saying, all right, like baby mother bird, all right, you got to go out there and fly. Is it time for us to revisit that culture and say, maybe that's not the right move in this day and time? Maybe I should let my daughter stick around. Maybe I should let my son stick around a little bit longer till they complete college and things. Is that the right narrative or the right cultural point that we need to be following at this point, Brother Michael?
Pandemic, it throws things off, and the rate of rent is skyrocketing. the price of homes is skyrocketing, the price of new cars is skyrocketing, the price of used cars is skyrocketing, the price of rental cars is skyrocketing. So I think right now, I mean, this is a wild card, right? What we're going through right now is a wild card. But when we look, not knowing all the details here of their situation, but just looking at the story from the Daily Mail and the Root.com, she was getting assistance from her father up until like 18 months ago or so.
Right.
She works at a warehouse. She makes $15 an hour. She also does Uber Eats and DoorDash. Okay.
Right.
She's homeless, living in a rental car.
Right.
She said it's an SUV that costs $2,300 for 3 weeks, and she only paid for 1 week. Okay. If you don't pay after a certain amount of time, they're going to report that car stolen, and you're going to be arrested in that car. So in a situation like this, luckily her 4 kids are not with her in that SUV. Okay. Luckily they're staying somewhere else. But this is like a dire situation. This is from what I understand of this situation, not having talked to Dr. Dre, not having talked to her, but what from my understanding of the situation is not a situation where it appears where he's giving her money right now and she just keeps blowing it and didn't pay the rent. You know what I mean? It's not like a situation where she got money and she blew it on something else and didn't pay the rent and then got evicted. Okay, she's in the car. So in a situation like this, I don't know what the relationship is like. Apparently, she hasn't talked to him in a number of months or possibly years. My daughter's 4. If my daughter was 38 in a situation like this, and I was in a situation to help her, whether we're on speaking terms or not, I don't want my daughter homeless. Okay, I don't want my daughter homeless. I don't want my daughter in a situation like this because if something tragic happens to her,
yeah,
he's gonna have to live with that.
Yep, there it is. There it is. Kelly, what's your take on it?
I was split when I first saw it because on one hand, you're almost 40 and it doesn't seem like you have your stuff together as a mother, as an adult, as someone in this world who, by all accounts is of sound mind and body and is able. But on the other hand, let's be real. Dr. Dre does not have the best track record when it comes to his treatment of Black women, specifically those in his family or those he brings in as his family, being a wife, being a girlfriend, what have you. So my initial take on it is that it's none of my business because it's literally not my business. But if we're going to use it as a conversation piece, it is interesting to see how many people or which people are leaning towards the notion of my baby is my baby and they're going to be good regardless, and the whole kicking you out of the nest come hell or high water. I feel like the latter is more of a Black American thing, because when I talk to and when my friends who are Black people but of different cultures, it is normal to stay home until you are about to get married or you are completely stable enough to become independent. But in saying that does not mean you don't have responsibilities at home. So it to me, there feels like a disconnect in that conversation where it's like, oh, is he going to just take care of her or whatever? Or is she just going to be out on her own? There's nuances to this. And in the real world, there's real nuances to it. So like if you're living at home and you're an adult, that doesn't mean you don't pay bills. That doesn't mean you're not responsible for the home. It's just, the home's just not in your name. So more or less, it's like an apartment, but your parents own it. That's how I've always seen it. And that's how people I know who are in that situation see it, because that's how it's being treated. But it's a collective effort to keep the home. So again, I'm split. At the end of the day, it's none of my business, but I wish her well.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have, you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it. please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Are the number of these Republican governors who have signed into law people who so-called believe in small government, who believe in personal responsibility, who believe that people should make their own choices. They literally are tying the hands of officials. I mean, to threaten to revoke school funding from schools in order to, because of a mask mandate. In fact, that was an emergency hearing today where they want to provide emergency opportunity scholarships for people who want to pull their kids out of public schools where they have mask mandates to enroll them into private schools. In Tennessee, they are threatening to pull the funding of school districts that put into place mask mandates. They're trying to literally save lives.
Yeah. This is what I've been talking about, the danger of this post-truth, post-factual, post-science society that we're living in, where we aren't making public health decisions based on science, based on saving people, based on not overwhelming the healthcare system. We're making them, or not we, but Republicans more specifically, are making these decisions to score cool points with, people on Fox News and with their base who has an appetite for destruction, who has an appetite for defiance, who has an appetite for, sticking it to the Democrats and big government, and it's to their detriment. And I think one of the reasons why they're getting away with this is because at the beginning of the pandemic, it was kind of presented as a black and brown issue. Oh, it's only black and brown people that are dying. For some reason, they don't care about grandma, great-grandma, grandpa dying. And so they're saying, well, if some older people have to die, that's fine too. But as Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton just pointed out, and you pointed out, this is impacting kids younger and younger. And as a mother of a 4-month-old, I'm absolutely terrified of something happening to her. I mean, I'm vaccinated. Everybody around me is fully vaccinated. She likely has some protection through the breast milk, but I could not fathom the idea of putting her at risk. And so the idea of sending kids to school without masks, it's just incredibly troubling and disturbing. And it just seems like they don't have a problem signing a death warrant. And I don't know if it's as much hubris or delusion, but either way, it's equally dangerous. And so this goes back to what I've been saying and what we always say on the show: elections matter. Elections have consequences. And people in these red states, they don't deserve to have their death warrant signed. They don't deserve what they're being subjected to. But that's the government that they voted for. And so I'm hoping that there will be some sanity in the courts, that there will be some lawsuits to try to challenge some of these mask mandates. We've seen where the vaccine mandates have basically been upheld by the courts. And it'll be interesting to see how these banning the mask mandates would hold up in the courts, if the same logic would hold. But it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. And to think that some people are choosing to sign up for this danger is even more mind-blowing. So we have to try to tackle this disinformation and this post-science society that we're living in. And the one last thing I would say is, it's so troubling to know that it's not even about trying to contain the disease anymore, contain the pandemic and the spread. It's just basically saying you're on your own. If you don't get vaccinated, you're shit out of luck. And we know that kids can't get the vaccine, but hey, we'll figure it out. We're gonna, and I'm scared to see what kind of death toll and destruction we have to see from kids, because we know from the Sandy Hook shooting, there's an incredibly high appetite for children's deaths in this country. And I'm just very afraid to see how many kids are going to have to die or get long COVID or be in the hospital before people say enough is enough.
Roger, we talk about, again, impact. We often have said on this show that the vaccine is done at 100%. It doesn't completely ward you off. There are variants, how Delta. They are in Jackson, Mississippi. They're mourning the death of the sheriff in Hinds County, Lee Vance, 63 years old. Apparently there was a He was fully vaccinated. Apparently, there was a outbreak of COVID in the county jail. He was at home for quarantining, and he died this week. And the thing that, so you have that example, but really what I think what is really just confusing me are the people who are not listening to children's experts. People who are not listening to these doctors who specialize in children. I'm looking on Cleavon's Twitter account, and he had posted a particular video where a hospital official in Arkansas said that they had experienced a 690% increase in children impacted. But also caught me this here. 42-year-old John Ayers from Southport, England, died from COVID. Quote, he was the healthiest person I know. He thought if he contracted COVID, he'd be okay and have a mild illness. He didn't want to put a vaccine in his body, said his twin sister. Now, this is his photo. That's what he looks like. This is him in the hospital. Now, look, this was a very muscular, healthy dude. You know, for the life of me, I don't get these people who don't realize what's happening with our children.
Well, I think it's a few things, and I think that once you start looking at, you know, vaccinating adolescents, there has to be a much bigger and deeper conversation because you're talking about children. One of the big concerns that I've been reading about and hearing about, Brother Roland, is the fact that out of the Children's Health Defense, this is a activist group founded by the attorney Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Who is actually one of the biggest spreaders of disinformation on the vaccine.
Well, I mean, he brings up a point. I think we should, and I'm saying this is why we have the conversation.
But look, there's a conversation. There's a conversation, and then there are people who are deliberately sending out misinformation, and he's one of those people.
Yeah,
okay,
and targeting our community specifically.
Well,
with flyers.
Okay, fine. If we don't want to acknowledge him, but let's look at the fact that if you're talking about having children, and I have two children, I have an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old. So when we're talking about having children, we're talking about informed consent. We're talking about what is going to be the impact of the vaccine on their evolving bodies. We're talking about a whole lot of things. This cannot be just a simple rollout. This is not a PR campaign. This is my future. This is Reese's future. This is anyone that has children or caretakers of children. This is your future. So we can't have a big conversation about vaccinations, an experimental vaccination at that hasn't been fully approved, and it won't be at least until September, excuse me, until we understand the whole, at least get the whole picture. I think one of the big parts about this whole process, Brother Roland, Reese, and Dr. Carr, is the fact that there has been a campaign of everything from fear to coercion to intimidation. Now it's just all out federal workers, you're mandated or you lose your job.
But here's the deal, though. I'll be honest with you. I'm scared of death. You damn right. I mean, and I want to show this. And I want to show this. Doctor, I want to show this. Doctor, I want to show this.
Nobody wants to die.
I want to show this. Dr. Jose Romero, who is the pediatric infectious disease specialist at Arkansas Children's Hospital, this is what he said. Among children less than 18 years of age who were hospitalized in July, 58% were less than 12 years of age. Listen to this. I'm going to take it back. Just hold on one second.
Among children less than 18 years of age who are hospitalized in July, 58% were less than 12 years of age. I think these numbers exemplify and bring out a very sobering aspect of the pandemic in our state. We have a group of individuals that are extremely susceptible to infection because they do not have eligibility for a vaccine. Among children less than 18 years of age who are hospitalized in July.
So I'm going to pull you in here, Greg. So this is the conundrum that we're in. We are literally seeing children's ICUs filled to capacity in many of these southern states. They are calling around neighboring states. They're saying, we have no room for your children.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going to take the vaccine for whatever reason, isolate. Don't have any human contact. If you've already taken it, save yourself. Wear your mask. Protect yourself. If you got friends or loved ones who are not going to take the vaccine, listen to them, ask them why, try to reason with them from a distance. And if you can't get through, cut them completely off. And as for this white nationalist Stoop Olympics, and it does look like the governor of Florida is going for the gold medal, which would be the nomination for his party, the White Nationalist Party, for the 2024 presidential cycle. You know, whatever happens to y'all happens to y'all. I'm going to keep saying this until somebody understands it. There is no we in this country. There's no national soul. There's no national sentiment. There's only people living in the same landmass with various perspectives. That white woman in Arkansas that went viral the other day for her tortured biblical interpretation of why God doesn't want her to put the needle in her arm, I wish her well. I won't encounter her in the store. I will not encounter her on the floor. I will not encounter her anywhere in the world. And if you want to die, you go right ahead, because in order to get sick, you have to be alive. Let's not forget that. Meanwhile, the continent of Africa, about 1% rate. The countries in the world that have been rendered poor through structural capitalism, for every 100 people, they've got access to about a dose and a half, as opposed to people in the United States and in the global north who have, for every 100 people, access to 50 doses. And the cover of today's Financial Times talked about the fact that Moderna, which I took, and Pfizer have gone up on the price of their vaccine. They just unloaded $2.1 billion to the EU bloc, and they are actually charging more now for their doses. Capitalism is about to kick in. Now, we'll talk a little bit later about this housing crisis, but those at the very top, they could give a damn about any of us. And if you want to value your whiteness over your life, and you watch that cosplay on Fox between Ducey and Kilmeade, and you decide you're not going to stick that needle in your arm, God bless you. Your God bless you. I'm not getting anywhere close to you. And those of you who are essential workers, who have never stopped working over the last year and a half, who have to deliver the mail and bag the groceries and drop off the Amazon packages and do the DoorDash and drive the Ubers, put 3 masks on, because these damn hillbillies are going to kill themselves, and they're going to drag some of us with them. Don't let it be you.
Roger, you talked about some of the requirements that people are making. CNN announced that there were 3 employees who came into the office multiple times and were unvaccinated, breaking their protocols. They were fired. There are other companies who are now making those requirements. I have made the exact same thing. Employers can't just think about an individual. They had to think about all the employees. And I totally get companies that are saying, if you don't get vaccinated, you may not have a job.
Well, I mean, if you're going to make that, and we have to look at the slippery slope that type of demand will possibly make. The president said on July 27th that the pandemic is continuing, essentially because he's called this the pandemic of the unvaccinated. I mean, that is absolutely insane, because this pandemic was happening before vaccines even came about. So the pandemic of the unvaccinated, to create that narrative, to which adds to the growing tension around vaccinations and those who are vaccinated, you're creating a war. And when you're talking about, if this gets to the point, Brother Roland, Dr. Carr and Reese, if we're getting to the point now that we're going to make vaccinations mandatory, you're going to have a real revolution in this country.
And guess what?
You're going to see, I'm not just talking about from black folks, I'm talking about, let me just case in point. And I think that we should all kind of talk about this a little bit more, but the USA Today, they put out this piece just a couple of days ago where they looked at this question of whether your personal freedom, what's the end of your personal freedom when you're deciding to do something for yourself, and what's the start of doing something for the common good? And as Americans, they said this, the COVID culture point, at what point should personal freedom yield to the common good? What is the common good? Now, is the common good saving lives? Absolutely. I don't think anybody wants to just check out of here, you know, but the common good, based upon what we're seeing a healthcare companies that are reaping rich off of this vaccine. We're seeing the conflicting messages coming from the CDC. You know, 70+% of the American people said that they have lost trust in the CDC and other agencies because of the conflicting messages. So what is considered to be the common good and what is considered to be personal freedom? We're not having certain conversations. We're not giving people a chance to really think about their decision making. It's just take this, take this, take this, do this, do this, do this.
No, they actually,
and at the same time, not giving people quote unquote personal choice.
No, they are getting personal choice. But here's the deal though. It's also my personal choice to employ you. Here's the thing I think a lot of people really forget. And that is, when Greg said it, if you don't want to take the vaccine, fine, self-isolate. But the deal though is, if decisions that you make, a decision begets another decision. And if somebody says, I am not going to take the vaccination, cool. There are things that are going to come with that you may not like. Now, if they want to say, well, you shouldn't be firing me. I mean, there are hospital workers right now who are angry and upset because hospitals have said, y'all gotta get vaccinated. And the hospital said, and if you don't, you lose your job. Now they yelling and cussing and fussing, but the hospital is saying, we are a hospital. we can't have you. And here's the other deal. How many of us have actually, of the four of us sitting here, how many of us have gone to the continent of Africa?
I'd be there right now.
I wish I could. I wish I haven't yet.
How many? And Greg, you've been. I've been. Reaching, did you raise your hand?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Didn't we all have to take a series of shots before we stood on? We for all of our personal freedom.
That's right.
We had to take a series of shots before we could even get on that plane. And if we landed, and they showed our papers, and they were like,
nope,
no shots. Hop your ass back on that plane, go back to where you came from.
No question.
Am I right, Greg?
That's right, brother.
But here's the thing, though, Brother Roland. Does this country have the mechanisms, the infrastructure in place to protect the citizens who may not be of the same mindset? Are we? And I'm asking because, like, for example,
hold on. When you say protect them, how? What? Quarantine them under armed house arrest?
What happens on the other side? So, okay, fine. You tell
what happens on the other side is we have funerals.
What happens? Then what happens? How do you protect those citizens? You just leave them to die? How do you ensure the rights of those citizens?
No, but Faraji, that's the problem right now. The problem right now is, and I can show you, there are people who right now who did not want to take the vaccine, and they literally right now are making deathbed videos saying, what the hell was I thinking? They are pleading with people. So you just ask, how do you protect them? They are protecting them. They literally are hospitalized right now. The problem is our hospitals are being filled. And
the reason, and Brother Roland, just real quick, dear brother, the reason that they're being filled is not necessarily because folks decided not to take the vaccination. We don't know, one, what the medical history of those individuals. Two, did they really wear the mask and do the social distancing? I'm all for that. So did they take the proper precautions?
I'll show you this here. Travis Campbell, 43, from Bristol, Virginia, has been hospitalized more than a week due to the Delta variant, which also infected his wife and 2 children. The unvaccinated man is adamant about making videos encouraging others to get vaccinated now. Here's the video.
This place was basically empty with COVID last week, but now it's full. So it is growing, and it is getting stronger. Hate to hear, lost a couple acquaintances the past 24 to 36 hours. COVID, the Delta strain, something else. I would ask you, if you thought that you had to sit down and plan your goodbyes and funeral, or go get the COVID vaccine, what would you do? I'd hope to God that all my friends and family would not say, somebody hand me a piece of paper and a pen. That's a sobering thought, of which I have.
Reese,
No, brother.
I mean, I'm sorry, Greg, go ahead.
No. All I was going to say is, and I wish Dr. Hilton was back here.
Matter of fact, she is. I think she just called back in. Dr. Ebony Hilton, you wanted to pop back on. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to go and try to mind my business, but I just listened to see what the panelists had to say, and I just want to speak to the gentleman. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
You mean Faraji Muhammad?
Yes. For one, respectfully, words have power, and right now, what I am telling you is that words and the information that is being spoken, this misinformation, is literally killing our people. We have at this stage, compared to last year, January 2020, when before pandemic actually hit the United States in fullness, we had our first case January 20th. And since that time, 1 in every 420 Black people that were alive last January has now died from COVID-19. We have higher death rates in every single age category, including our children. This is not the time for us to go back and forth over talking points because we want to get our voices heard. Because at the end of the day, if you have not had to look at a family and tell them I'm sorry, but they are dead, then I don't need the back and forth, because what I got to tell you is we're burying 9-year-olds. 9. This has to stop. And it's one of those things that really does. If there was a miracle drug, I tell people all the time, I don't come from a medical family. I came from a single parent home. My parents didn't graduate from high school. I lived in the place that we talk about with the lack of resources. That's what I got, free lunch. That's me. So when I think about the fact that we're already having to battle the fact that we don't have medical resources in the neighborhood that I grew up, and I know my family is struggling to even get vaccines in the first place. Literally, they left South Carolina to go to North Carolina to get vaccinated because they weren't getting it out because we got a Republican governor. I already know the uphill battle we got to fight as far as racism, as it deals with environmental racism and the toxins being poured in our air and water. All that stuff I already know. And what I am telling you is that we have young people, young, otherwise healthy, nothing in my chart. I am 20 years old. And 2 weeks ago, I had to literally bury a 20, I'm not going to say the age and the sex of this person, but a person half my age from COVID-19. We cannot afford to do this, people. I mean, and what terrifies me is that we know that if we look at where Black people live, we live in the southern states. We live in South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. 50% of all Black people, we live down south. And guess where the hot spots are right now? If not the complete south. And guess where the lack of vaccine uptake is happening? In the deep south. And guess where high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes live, if not in the deep south? So guess who's going to die at higher rates? Again. So instead of it being 1 in every 400, it'll be 1 in every 200, and it is killing us.
Yes, ma'am. And Dr. Hilton, this is not about talking points, and I'm wholeheartedly in agreement with you, sis. that, you know, having those conversations with families to let them know that their child has lost the fight against COVID-19. This is not about to score any political points, but I think that we should have some deeper conversations. I mean, people are talking about the hesitancy. They're talking about not being adamant. I mean, looking at where this country is, we're looking at in terms of the medical experimentation, the history of medical experimentation on Black and brown communities in this country. We can't just disregard that scholarship and that research. We can't just disregard the fact that this vaccine was produced in such a way, and I could be wrong, Dr. Hilton. I can be totally wrong, and I'll be the first one to admit it. But I didn't see a consortium of Black medical professionals like yourself and others coming from both America, coming from Haiti, coming from Cuba, to discuss, okay, we know a company like Pfizer, a company like Moderna, a company like Johnson & Johnson, companies that have real problems in producing sound and effective and life-saving treatment. Let's see what other alternatives have been, can we look at? I don't know if those conversations happen. Please inform me. Let me know if those discussions were had, where we can look at it specifically for Black and brown communities, that those conversations where we can look at what are some of the options outside of these medical corporations.
Wait, hold on. So you're asking, first of all, I can tell you, because we had them on, the National Medical Association, the folks at Meharry, the folks, they were very much involved in as a vaccine was being developed. Now, when you say other options, please, by all means, present the other options.
I think there are other options. Look at. We can look at South America. We can look at Mexico. We can look at Haiti. We can look at what's happening in Africa. When I looked at some of the numbers, Brother Roland, Dr. Hilton, when I looked at some of the numbers, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the global context, the United States has the highest number of COVID cases in the world.
Wait a minute, Faraji. I think, you know, just today, yesterday, Tedros Ghebreyesus, who is over the World Health Organization, called for a moratorium on booster shots in the global north until vaccines are delivered to Africa. 1%. You got people who will crawl through over broken glass to try to get a vaccine in Ghana, Nigeria, even South Africa. And in terms of Latin America, that's where we've seen, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hilton, the Lambda strain is coming. As far as Cuba is concerned, that's geopolitics. United States and the global north freezing Cuba out. They developed 2 vaccines, the Ebola vaccine and the Soberana vaccine, both over 90% effective. And so far, they've begun to inoculate. I think they're close to 11 million in Cuba now have taken 1 shot. But Dr. Hilton, help me, because again, and Roland, I'm glad you mentioned President of Meharry, James Hilder. You had him on before anybody. He's an epidemiologist. I mean, you know, Wayne Frederick at Howard, the sister who's president of Morehouse School of Medicine. You had them on over and over again, and you've kind of been the thread through all of it, Dr. Hilton. So something I heard on the show the other day, the brother from A&T who you had on, Roland, made this point. But Dr. Hilton, correct me if I'm wrong, the Delta Plus, the Lambda, I mean, I had Moderna. Number one, that doesn't make me immune to COVID. But in terms of the new variants, am I now, because of those, if I get one of those variants, am I more likely to be a carrier with a mild illness? And then because the new variant looks at, I mean, COVID is not racist. And the new variant, help me if I understand this correctly, because of the new variant, I am more likely to infect an uninfected person than maybe even before they had a vaccine. It's just going, this vaccine's not helping me against, we don't even know if it's going to help me against COVID for Lambda. And is that true? Is that correct?
Right, and it's one of these things. So let's define how variants come across. So it's almost, again, I don't come from a medical family, so I try to think in very simple terms of how I wish someone would explain it to me. So you can think about variants like the telephone game. If I say ABCD QRST, and then Reese says ABCD QRSTV, right? And then the next person says ABC QRLMN. That's the slight change where we keep the same base, but then it's slightly different in between. That's what mutants are. Because as COVID goes from me to Reese to Roland, The virus's only job and only goal is to be able to replicate. And it knows that if I can trick the immune system, then that's the most likely that I can get to the next generation of me. So I have to change slightly from me to Reese to Roland in order to get to the next generation, if that makes sense. And so when you're talking about the vaccine, what we do know is that the vaccine still recognizes fairly well that ABCD. Now, it does not necessarily recognize the QRS if you throw in some other letters, and I'm hoping this is making sense to people as far as this telephone game. But what we do see is that the vaccine itself reduces your likelihood of being hospitalized or infected by 8 times, right? 8 times less likely to be infected. You're 25 times less likely to be hospitalized and 25 times less likely to die if you are vaccinated versus if you're not. Now, do we have a real threat that we're going to get a telephone game of where now instead of it saying ABCD, that it says QRS first and throws us all the way off? Yes. And the reason why we have the biggest is, again, when we were just talking to the gentleman about vaccines and he mentioned Africa, I don't know, and I think you said you've never been to Africa. I've done mission trips in Africa, and I lived in Tanzania for a month and then for 2 weeks the following year in 2013. And I tell you, that one hospital was servicing in Tanzania, Mwanza, Tanzania, the entire country of Tanzania. There is not a resource there that we have the luxury of having here in the United States of America. So when we're saying they don't have cases, it's not because they don't have cases, it's because they don't have tests for those people. Literally, we had patients that would walk to the hospital for days that I can put up, videos of what I took to show how these children who had infections within their belly, their families had to carry them for days to get to the hospital, and unfortunately, they would pass away there. So we cannot say that they don't, and it's an injustice to Africa, the continent of Africa, actually, at this stage where 15% of the global population is vaccinated, but yet in Africa, it's only 1.8% because they are not getting vaccines in the rate that the wealthiest countries are getting vaccines, and they are dying. And it's not only in Africa, it's in South America. Literally, when we're talking about the P1 variant, that was out of Brazil, right? We had the Alpha variant first in the UK. We had the South African variant, right? I don't know if y'all remember that one. And then we had the P1 variant, which was in Brazil. Yeah. This is not a game of, we're only dying in the United States. We're testing more in the United States. We're not doing as many tests as we should be doing in the United States. And yes, we are able to count our deaths better because we have the medical resources that if you get sick because you don't want to get vaccinated right now for whatever reason, you can go into a hospital that's at least 20 minutes car ride from your home, right? That's not the same in every other location. And unfortunately, it's that type of not understanding the system holistically that's causing a lot of people to doubt the system, and unfortunately it's costing their lives, because what we do know again is that in the United States of America, 1 out of every 420 Black people has died from COVID-19 since the start of the pandemic. And it's only going to get worse. We are again estimating right now we have 100,000 cases being diagnosed a day. That's going to go between now and September the 1st, which is only 3 more weeks, up to 200,000 people we're estimating going to be diagnosed a day. And by October the 1st, we're going to be burying 4,000 people a day. And how many of those people are going to be Black people? And it doesn't have to be.
Dr. Hilton, I'm interested to get your take on, how do we have a conversation like this? And it's fine. I mean, we can go back and forth, but I think that it's very important that we have a conversation like this from a space of really understanding that Black folks do not trust the medical industry of America. We don't trust the medical system, right? We understand that, there are 2 books, and I'm sure Dr. Carr can go further on it. Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington, that talks about the dark history of medical experimentation on Black people, and Acres of Skin by Alan Hornblum, which deals with medical experimentation done largely on Black inmates. So when we had that history, I mean, how do we just put that to the side? Do we just say, no, it's not important because the numbers are for this is right now? Or do we just say, okay, let's figure out some other way to address this beyond a PR campaign?
No, and I think we do address the history. Again, I don't come from a medical family. The reason why I went into medicine is literally when I was 8 years old, my little sister asked my mom for a brother. I'm the middle of 3 girls. And at that time, my mom told me that my parents' first child was actually a little boy. She was in her 11th grade of high school. They got pregnant. She went to a clinic, and at 6 months pregnant, they did a test on her. She started leaking fluid. My brother was born within 2 days, and he only lived 3 days, and he passed away. That's the reason why I went into medicine, because I, at the age of 8, felt like I can possibly make a difference where another mother wouldn't have to cry because she has to bury her child. And so in growing up in medicine, I have definitely taken with everything that I am from that space. I am from that very neighborhood of where we were talking about Tuskegee, where we're talking about, you're talking about actually with the acres of skin, that's the Philadelphia experiment, a prison experiment. All that stuff, literally, if you look at our website, I have a consulting firm called Good Stock Consulting. Literally, that's all we talk about day in and day out. And what we are saying is holding institutions accountable. If you look at things like Tuskegee, for instance, they were withholding medication from Black people that could have kept them alive. And in this stage of COVID-19, what I ask everyone clearly is, if it was an experiment that could possibly taint you or kill you, would you see the most powerful people in our nation, white people, the president of the United States? Would you see the Lindsey Grahams? Would you see the Mitch McConnells? All of them jumping in front of us, Black people, who should have been in the front of the line because we had racial health disparities. But we had Marco Rubio, we had Ted Cruz, we had the Fox News support, people. They were the first ones on stage, so they could use it as a political stunt to say, oh, I'm just doing this to gain interest and to gain the support. No, they were doing it because they knew it could save their lives. And Lindsey Graham right now with his COVID positive self, if he did not have the vaccine, would likely be dead. That's the truth of what we're dealing with. So we have to look at this thing and take a step back and say, if it was this huge experiment, then would we be seeing people literally jump over you in order to get it? Because if y'all don't want it, I guarantee you there's people all around this globe, like in India, where they're burying 13,000 people a day because of the Delta variant, that would say, please give it to me because I don't want to die. And unfortunately, in the United States, between now and December the 31st, many people who are hearing my voice right now will not be here. And possibly even me, because when people are coming to the hospital, they are coughing in our face. I don't want to die either. And it's that selfishness of thought of, well, I don't want to put something in my body. But when you get sick, then all I ask for you to do is keep that same energy. Again, I'm not from a medical family. Take the white coat off. Keep that same energy then, and don't come into the hospital coughing in my face, because I want to go home to my family too.
That's
and
right.
that's
I'm gonna
jump in?
I'm gonna bring Reese in. Reese, Faraji talked about having a conversation. That's what we've literally done for the last 15, 16 months. This is precisely why I have put on Black medical experts. We know, based upon the research, Reese, Black people trust Black doctors than they do anybody else. So there was a reason why. Now, I get this whole deal about let's have the conversation, but this is the dilemma that we are in. We can talk about what has happened over the last 100, 200, 300 years, or we can talk about how we're going to enrich funeral home directors today.
Right. Here's what's so frustrating, because this is exactly what I have been screaming about, the way that disinformation has really infiltrated our communities. I think we need to challenge ourselves as Black people. Why is it that we can quote and we can cite Robert F. Kennedy, I don't know if it's the junior or the third, but a virulent anti-vaxxer who's targeting our communities with this who's been targeting our communities with anti-vaccination rhetoric, and specifically the COVID anti-vaccination rhetoric. I mean, it's going so far as to hand out flyers. Why is it that there's trust put in that person as opposed to a doctor like Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton, who is telling us that? Why is it that we as Black people, not all of us, and I'm not trying to dump on you, Faraji, but this is my frustration that I've seen in our community where I've been screaming about this. And Dr. Ebony, you know that I've been saying this because you're talking about vaccine access. And I said, we have to talk about hesitancy as well. We have to talk about the way that there is a deterrence campaign infecting our community. And why is it that as Black people, we will believe a sensational lie from a white person who wants to do harm to us than the simple truth from Black people who are trying to protect us, who are trying to get the truth out there, who are trying to save our communities. And I'm not trying to criticize you, Faraji, because I don't think that it's you alone who is repeating some of these things. But when you quote the CHD and the Children's Health Defense, that's an anti-vax organization. That is an anti-vax organization by a white man who does not want what's best for our community.
Oh, no. Don't get it twisted, Reese. No, don't get it twisted. It's not about choosing. Look, I trust, and of course, Dr. Hilton is not my personal doctor, but right. I trust her scholarship and her medical expertise. So it's not about that. This is a much larger conversation. So it's not like, oh, we're not listening to Black doctors, but at the same time, Black doctors have been used, and I'm saying historically, I'm not speaking of Dr. Hilton, but Black doctors have been the face of white interest and white power in the medical industry.
See this, but that's making my point about the cynicism and skepticism towards Black doctors. And all I'm saying is, why isn't there that same cynicism and skepticism towards anti-vaxxers like Robert F. Kennedy and the Children's Health Defense?
We don't have to bring Robert F. Kennedy. You can agree with or not.
But hold on. All I'm saying is, why is there not equal, if not more, skepticism and cynicism towards the people that are actually trying to harm our community, that are actually trying to make it so that 1 in 420 Black people becomes 1 in 200 or 1 in 100? Why is there not the same level of scrutiny and cynicism towards those people? Those are the people who are actually trying to harm us. That's what I'm saying. If you want to be skeptical of anybody, I'm all for being critical. I'm all for getting the facts. I'm all for doing the research. But what I find as a trend, and it's not exclusive to COVID-19, it's in politics, it goes across the board, is there's data that is contrary to conventional wisdom, that is uncritically ingested, indoctrinated, and regurgitated, and then you have the actual facts on the other side. And the people that are trying to give the facts, people like Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton and a number of Black experts, as Roland has had on the show, are the ones who are tools of the white agenda, and they're the PR campaign. The PR campaign is the Children's Health Defense Fund. That's not a medical organization. They're putting out flyers.
We already know that. That's an activist group. So it is what it is for them. But again, Reese, this is not about picking and choosing. This is looking at a pattern. This is looking at a system that has not been kind to Black bodies.
Okay, all right, okay, fine. Just show me this then. Okay, fine, show me this. This is very simple. Please show me, and first of all, we know very well first of all, ain't nothing in America. There's not no system in America that has been kind to Black people. We can apply that to real estate, Wall Street, I mean, every single system. We got that. Fine, show me this. Show me a Black doctor who does not believe in the current 3 vaccines, who has come up with an alternative. Who?
A Black doctor.
Yes.
See, that's
medical doctor.
The one doctor that said the alien sperm, he might mention her. I mean, it literally makes me think about.
No. Hold on. Faraji, I'm making a point. Because here's the piece.
Go ahead.
Show me. You mentioned other countries and what they're doing. God, show me a Black doctor who has done that. Because you asked Ebony, hey, were there other doctors who came up with other avenues or methods that are alternatives to the vaccine? Okay, show me.
I'm asking the question, Roland.
No. And so the fact that you can ask that question, and I don't know, and Ebony don't know, and Greg don't know, and Reese don't know, and if they're there, fine, bring it out there. But the dilemma that we are faced with right now is this: it literally is life or death.
Right. I understand.
See, we could have the historical, larger, broader, deeper breakdown of the system. This is what I know right now. When my ass go fill up my gas, I better have some gloves on and some damn disinfectant, because the Delta variant might be on that gas pump. When I get on that plane, I am not thinking, let me be real clear. When I sit my ass on that plane tomorrow to fly to Charleston, South Carolina, Roland at that moment ain't thinking about Tuskegee. I'm not thinking about a jail. I'm thinking about goggles, mask, filter, gloves, wipe everything down, getting out of there. I'm not dismissing nothing that's happened to us historically, but I have to deal with the present of what's happening now, and that's why Dr. Robert Graves from North Carolina A&T has constantly been on here, and Ebony, and Tyson Bell, and when you had the presidents of Dillard and Xavier who participated in this COVID study. That's why we had the president of the National Medical Association, the largest group of black doctors in the country. That's why we've had these people on, because if we can't trust our black experts, well, hell, who left? Because I damn sure not going to listen to Robert F. Kennedy.
And that's fine.
Faraji, and you remember this, brother, when HIV/AIDS was really slamming our people, and it's still slamming our people, as we'll talk about in a minute. But remember Dr. Barbara Justice, Abdul Ali Muhammad, and we're talking about alpha interferon and various. Now, let's set aside the science for a minute, because I agree with you 100% about the distrust of the system. And it isn't just historical. I mean, Dorothy Roberts up at University of Pennsylvania Law School wrote a book called Killing the Black Body. It isn't just Tuskegee. It isn't just Holmesburg Prison. It's our experiences in the doctor's office every day. And so I guess, I'm thinking, how do we maybe steer into this? In other words, what you've described, Roland, in terms of how you're going to approach that plane. There are people who would say, but you're fully vaccinated, brother. You don't have, no. I'm going to absorb all of that experience-based paranoia of this system and protect myself. Because I remember, in fact, sitting and listening to Abdul Ali Muhammad and saying, yeah, you know what? There probably have been some breakthroughs. And of course, Big Pharma wouldn't let us know that. At the same time, to what you're raising, Roland, is very important. And Faraji, I know this, because I hear you, brother. And I embrace that energy in part because I went to, and Roland, you covered it. You sent your team to cover it. When the Tuskegee descendants of the people who were in the Tuskegee experiment came to Howard. Yep. I'm listening. I can hear it logically, but I understand class plays a role in our society, which means that there are black people who trust no petty bourgeois Negro. And especially when they're basically talking to black people like we're stupid. So in other words, y'all don't do this, you stupid. So immediately, part of the reaction is, I ain't gonna do it because I don't like how you talking to me. So why Dr. Hilton, Doc, what you said at the end there, when you and Faraji were talking, that really hit me because, my mother's sister's oldest child, my cousin, has been a nurse for almost 50 years. And she works in Baltimore sometimes, she's on the West Coast. But when you said, I wanna go home to my family, I'm saying, see, that's the kind of talk. But see, you know how to talk like that because you didn't come from one of them petty bourgeois families. No, black people are going to have to be talked to as if you are intelligent. And I know you don't trust them Negroes. In fact, the more degrees you got, the least you trust them. But when you say something like that, I'm thinking about my cousin. And I'm saying, if you go in the hospital in Baltimore and kill Jeanette, I'm coming for your ass today. In other words, But I think that, Faraj, what I'm saying, that I think we have to learn how to listen to our people in a way that doesn't communicate we think we smarter than them. I think that's why people don't trust politicians, don't trust many black doctors. And so I'm just saying all that to say that what you're voicing, a lot of our people, in fact, Roland, I will say this last, this is why Roland Martin Unfiltered is so important. Because there are people who are listening who are saying, you know what, I don't know if it's a doctor that created it or not, but I don't trust these people. I'm saying you shouldn't trust none of them. Because if it was up to them, we'd all be dead. But guess what? You need to trust that they are against you, which means what? If they're taking it, to Doc's point, then you need to think about taking it. Why? Because the one thing about being free, you got to be alive to be free on top of the earth.
And that's why when Dr. Ebony Hilton and Dr. Tyson Bell, when they purposely, when they got the shot, they shot the video, they documented, everybody talk about that, why y'all did that. Other black doctors did that because this is real simple. If Dr. Ebony, you ain't trying to sit here and put something in your body that's gonna screw you up.
Right.
Right. And literally, I was the very first person at UVA to take the vaccine, and I wanted them to videotape it. And then I did YouTube videos of showing me the days after, because I don't come from a medical family. I completely understand where the mistrust comes from. And I wanted it to be one of those things of people could see by my example. I wouldn't do something to myself that could potentially kill myself. I mean, I love life. And I didn't feel that it would be right of anybody in the medical profession to ask someone else to do what they wouldn't do themselves. And so, like I said, I completely get it. I think, and I apologize if I came out as being kind of harsh and blunt, because it literally.
No, you ain't got to apologize. No, keep it real.
I do think, it's by the grace of God, my immediate family has not died. And I literally think about that all the time.
Same here.
And so how do we get past this point of needing more and more data when the data is already there, and we're trying to find data that proves our how do you say it, that gives our anxiety a home. And at this point, every day that we are trying to find that home space for that anxiety, 600 people are dying from COVID. And it's going to find itself to your door just because the Delta variant is literally, the viral load of the Delta variant is 1,000 times higher than the original COVID. It is not something that you can just say, oh, I'll be okay. And even if you don't die, I have a mentee who is a young Black woman. She's in her mid-20s. She hasn't been able to taste or smell since January. And what does that mean when your brain no longer works in the same way? She is 26. What will her life look like when she's 40 or 50? Will she develop Alzheimer's at a younger age? We don't know. But we do know that that part of her brain is now scarred in some kind of way. That's scary. And you don't have to go through that. Wear your mask, get vaccinated. Don't go to Lollapalooza and things like that. It's not worth your life to have 48 hours of fun. We're just trying to get through this together. That's all.
All right, Dr.
Can I say one more?
Reese, go ahead, the final comment.
Okay, let me just talk to the audience right now. Here's the thing, my people. I understand the hesitancy. I understand the mistrust. What I want to warn you about is that there is a campaign to use that mistrust to further damage our community, our lives. They are playing on that mistrust. There's a campaign through foreign interference, through social media, through organizations like the Children's Health Defense Fund that mean us harm, that are utilizing our well-warranted mistrust to damage us even further. And so just at least keep that in mind when you're seeing some of this anti-vax information. It is your choice. It is your choice. But I will say, in terms of medical racism, Black women have the highest Black maternal mortality rate. We do have the benefit. I know many Black women that have decided to do home births, that have decided to get doulas. That isn't as much an option with COVID. I had a standard C-section in a hospital. There are alternatives to counter that medical racism. The government is telling us the only thing you get is the vaccine or a ventilator if you get the thing, or body bag. Good luck, bitches. So you make the decision whether you want to throw your lot in with the vitamins, with the disinformation, with with your immune system being in perfect health, or if you want to give yourself a little bit more of a chance with the vaccine. It's up to you. But the government is saying that's it. The pandemic of the unvaccinated means if you don't get the vaccine, don't say shit to us. That's what the government is saying, and that's what the employers are saying. And so that's your choice to determine which side you're going to be on.
Dr. Ebony Hilton, I'm going to say thanks for a second time since you decided to come back on, watching the conversation. I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All
Y'all
right.
be safe.
All right, we're going to go to a break, and during this commercial break, we're going to show you, this is not all of the experts, but you're going to see, because I need y'all to see what we've been doing, okay? We have not, and this is no shade to anybody, we ain't been having black entertainers on here talking about COVID, the vaccine, and your health. We ain't had no rappers, no ball players, no actors, no. We've had real experts on this issue. When we come back from this break, we're going to talk about the eviction moratorium and talk with a black real estate expert on what this means for African Americans. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Every single night, we've got some of the top black experts. You're not going to see them on cable news or broadcast news because you swear black people aren't experts when it comes to this health crisis. That's why we have this show and why we do what we do every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Joining us right now is retired General Russell Honore, the nation's first black Surgeon General, Dr. Joycelyn Elders. John Hope Bryant, he is the founder of Operation Hope. Senator Kamala Harris of California, Dr. Sadrina Calder, retired General Lloyd Austin, Congresswoman Karen Bass, Commissioner Omari Hardick, Bureau President in Brooklyn, Eric Adams, Dr. Joseph Graves, America's Wealth Coach, Deborah Owens, Dr. Corey Abear, Patal Saul, Howard University student, Pastor Jamal Bryant, Dr. Christy McDowell, Benja Ajilore, senior economist at the Center for American Progress, Gilda Daniels, again, author of the book, The Crisis of Voter Suppression in America. 4 stars, General Kip Ward, Dr. Oliver Brooks is president of the National Medical Association, president of the American Medical Association, Dr. Patrice Harris, Joby Benjamin, Dr. Alexia Gaffney, an infectious disease specialist, Dr. Georges Benjamin, executive director of the American Public Health Association, Malcolm Nance, family medicine physician, Dr. Jen Caudle, Dr. Tashaka Cunningham, a molecular biologist, Kat Stafford. She's a national race and ethnicity reporter for the Associated Press. Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, who is the president of Howard University, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke from the state of New York, William Springs, AFL-CIO economist, Andrea James, executive director of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. All right, let's go to Capitol Hill. Congressman Gregory Meeks, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson of Texas, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, mental health clinician Jamie Singletary, Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Brayboy, as well as Dylan Hayrie, ACLU Justice Division strategist. Dr. Cindy Duke, she is a virologist. Principal Steve Perry of Capitol Prep. Health and wellness specialist Dr. Yolandra Hancock. Desmond Meade, president of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. Cliff Albright, who is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Michael Harriot with the Root. Mina McWhorter, founder of Love by the Hand. Dr. Julianne Malvo, economist president, Emerita Bennett College. Coroner Michael Fowler is the mayor of Atlanta. Keisha Lance Bottoms, mental health therapist Suzette Clark. Justin Gibney, attorney and political strategist, and Bishop Vincent Matthews Jr. Dr. Suzette McKinney, CEO and executive director of the Illinois Medical District. Dr. Leon McDougall, president-elect of the National Medical Association. Jana Bailey, mayor of Moss Point, Mississippi, Mario King. We're going to keep driving this thing to make sure our people are fully aware, safe, protected from coronavirus. You get the top medical experts, the top business experts, top political experts, top religious experts, because that's why we do what we do. Unapologetically and unfiltered. Ain't nobody else in the black media space doing what we do. Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Seek.com. Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Seek.com is one of the partners with us here, Roland Martin Unfiltered. If you would like to take advantage of their headset, as well as their virtual reality headset, or their earphones right here. Of course, there's these amazing, the sound's also amazing, folks. 360-degree sound. The bass is tremendous. You can use that VIP code right there, RMVIP21, RMVIP21. Use that promo code, and then a portion of the proceeds comes back to us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. So please, if you want to support Seek.com, and you can check out their virtual reality content through their site as well, CEEK.com. And folks,